Ready if you are, Karen.
We are.
Okay, go ahead, Commissioner.
Good morning. Looks like we're live streamed. Good morning, everybody. We thank you for joining us for a regular Tuesday morning board meeting for Tuesday, June 23rd. So we have Commissioner Didier in the office. I'm down in my own office, and Brad is remote. So we have all three commissioners, and we call this order. And if you would join me with a pledge of allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of
the United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you. Our first item on the agenda this morning is a public hearing amending the speed limit ordinance 04-2020. And I believe we have Matt Mahoney on the phone that can lead us into this, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The purpose of this public hearing, before I move on, everybody can hear me fine?
Yes, please proceed.
Okay, great. The purpose of this public hearing is to review proposed amendments to the Franklin County Speed Limit Ordinance in accordance with RCW 46.61.415, whenever local authorities in their respective jurisdictions determine on the basis of an engineering and traffic investigation that the maximum speed permitted under RCW 46.61.400 or 46.61.440 is greater or less than is reasonable and safe under the conditions found to exist upon a highway or part of a highway, the local authority may determine and declare a reasonable and safe maximum limit thereon. And that can include decreasing the limit at intersections, increasing the limit, but not more than 60 miles per hour, or decrease the limit, but not less than 20 miles per hour. Local authorities in their respective jurisdictions shall determine by an engineering and traffic investigation the proper maximum speed for all arterial streets and shall declare a reasonable and safe maximum limit thereon, which may be greater and less than the maximum speed permitted under RCW 46.61.400 paragraph 2, but shall not exceed 60 miles per hour. The Public Works Department has determined on the basis of an engineering and traffic investigation that the current conditions warrant changes to Glade North Road from milepost 22.27 to milepost 22.59, which is, I believe, 32 hundredths of a mile, and R170 Road from milepost 6.24 to milepost 7.96, and are proposing a reduction in speed from 50 miles per hour to 35 miles per hour due to traffic volume, including truck traffic, and the current zoning, which includes general, industrial, and rural service commercial. So we have prepared exhibits. Those have been provided as part of the agenda summary report, and Craig, the county engineer, and myself will stand by to answer any questions and or provide support when called upon by the board.
Commissioners, do you have any comments before I open up the public hearing?
Yes, Matt, this is Clint Didier.
Yes.
In our ordinance number here in what we were given on the R170, it says milepost 6.24 to 6.39. Is this a misprint on this? You gave us a further distance. I was just trying to get clarity here on what the length of the slowdown is.
The length of the slowdown, I believe, on Glade North is 0.32 miles.
Yeah, that one's just about correct.
Oh, wait. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm backwards on that. That's 0.15.
On 170.
Yeah, That's what I believe so, yes.
Okay, because in this, in our ordinance number and the way it's written up, it's not written right, then we need to change those numbers. Do you have it written right, Keith? Because I've got 6.24 to 6.39.
Well, what we did, I believe, was we provided you two of them. One has one with strike throughs on it to show you where our changes were at. And I'm going to those right now to see which one you're looking at.
Okay, on the, it's the second page that I'm looking at, ordinance number before the Board of County Commissioners of Franklin County, Washington. Is it is this an ordinance repealing existing section, whereas the Public Works speed reductions of 35, yeah.
We provided you two copies. One actually has a strike through.
Okay.
The one that we provided that is really the final draft that's above you, in front of you today, does show that section of Glade North from 22.27 to 22.59.
I'm reading the same one you are.
Okay, I see that in the, it's right on the first page, but on the second page, it's not right. But you got it on the first page, it is. It goes 6.24 to 7.96. So on the motion that we're going to be passing, it is right. So I think we'll be okay. I just want to make sure we had the numbers right.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yes, definitely. Like I said, I'm trying to do a comparison here, and like I said, I'm looking under the 35 mile per hour. So actually, to get to that section, to get to the 35 mile per hour for Glade North, I'm on actually page 6 of 7.
I think to help clarify what Clint's trying to say is that the ASR is saying that it's 6.4 to 7.96. And that's just the ASR. The ordinance reads 6.24 to 6.39. So it's the one we're passing.
Yeah, I'm not seeing that in the ordinance that I have here in front of me, which I printed out from the packet. I'm seeing the same numbers I gave you from the ASR.
That's not what this says, though.
I'm on page 6 of 7, and I see Glade North, and I'm seeing at R170 Road would be the second listing of Glade North on page 6 of 7 of the ordinance, and I'm seeing 22.27 to 22.59 for a total distance of 0.32 miles.
Like Clint's saying, that's different from the ordinance.
I'm reading that from the ordinance. That's what I'm confused about. Is what are you looking at? I'm not sure what ordinance you're looking at.
It's page 107, and it's the one that we've got in front of us.
Oh, are you referring to the resolution?
Ordinance number 04-220.
Yes, Matt, that is the resolution. It's the ordinance.
Yeah, it's an ordinance, not a resolution.
Okay, I'm sorry. The actual ordinance itself, 107, that will need to be changed. Yes. So you'll want to base it on. You want to base it on the 22.27 to 22.59, which actually is in the body of the speed ordinance itself, and we'll have to provide a new cover page to this ordinance.
Okay.
So I appreciate you pointing that out. I'm sorry that we missed that. That is unfortunate.
Okay, we can still pass this, and the signature page will be the same, but just need to clean up the first page.
Yep.
Yes, and we will.
Okay.
Okay, I have a staff member who brought something to me, and he's saying the entire section from 6.24 to 7.96 will be 35 miles
Right.
per hour. So we are reducing 6.24 to 6.39. Oh, okay, that makes sense. So what we're doing is there's already sections of R170 that are 35 miles per hour.
Right.
And all we're doing is extending it. And so what you're seeing is the ordinance is going to be the full length of 35 miles per hour, but what the cover page is only showing that we're now moving that lower speed limit a little farther up the road. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
0.15 miles.
Yeah, so they both are correct. The ordinance, the body of the ordinance itself includes the whole 35-mile-an-hour zone. What we're doing is moving through Basin City, that 35 miles per hour on R170, a little bit farther back down the road past the intersection. So that's what the cover page is saying, but the ordinance is going to show the full length of that 35-mile-an-hour zone. So based on that, they both are correct. I know this may be a little confusing, and I made it even more confusing, but that is correct. That's the specific areas on Glade North and R170 that warrant to be changed.
Okay.
And then those get added into what is already 35 mile per hour speed limit on R170. Does that make sense?
Yep.
I believe so. Thank you, Matt.
All right,
Yep.
thank you. So with that conversation, we will open it up to public hearing. Do we have anybody on queue?
I do have one caller, Mr. Travis Coulter, who would like to speak on the speed limit issue. Good morning, Mr. Coulter. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
There we go.
Yes, there you go. Is this
Hey, how are we, gentlemen?
good? Is this Mr. Coulter?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. You are in the Board of Commissioners meeting, and I understand you have a comment on the speed limit ordinance. I would encourage you to go ahead.
All right. We have a proposal to put a gas station there, and that's kind of what brought this about. I was having trouble with the audio early on here. So I didn't quite hear, is that going to be pushed through, or I didn't quite hear an answer there, or is there an answer today?
Are you asking whether the speed limit ordinance will be changed or adopted?
Yes.
That's being discussed as we speak, and so your public comment will be considered by the board as you make your comments, but no decision as of yet has been reached.
Okay, I apologize. I had just had some trouble with my audio there, so I couldn't quite hear what was being said early on. But other than that, no really questions as far as that goes, other than whether there was going to be approval or not today. I didn't know if that was going to occur today or later on down the road.
It is intended that the board would vote on the action before then today.
Okay, great. Is there any argument from our standpoint that I can give to help explain why we were looking to do this speed limit reduction?
Yes, please.
Okay, so coming up Glade North, we have an entrance into that site that was shut down by the county engineer because the speed approaching 170 in Glade North was too fast for where the approach into the gas station would be. So in order for us to keep the design the way we have it, which would allow trucks to come in off of 170 into that gas station and then also off of Glade North into that gas station, that is why they proposed the speed limit reduction to us as an option to keep that design the way it is as of right now. We feel that if we are able to keep both entrances, one off of 170 and one off of Glade North, it'll make the entry and exit for the semi trucks much easier to get in and out of.
All right, thank you for your comment.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Anything further, Keith?
Not at this time, Commissioner.
Okay. With that, we'll close the public hearing and ask for any further from the commissioners. If not, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, do we have an ordinance number identified yet?
I do, a 04-220.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Peck. Move for approval of ordinance 04-220 as presented.
I second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Thank you. And we'll move on to our second public hearing, which is adoption of the Franklin County 6-year transportation improvement program. And this is a resolution rather than the ordinance. So, Matt, please.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, the purpose of this public hearing is to review the proposed transportation improvement program for Franklin County for years 2021 through 2026. As part of the Federal Highway Administration's allocation of funding, each state is required to submit a 6-year statewide transportation improvement plan that we affectionately call the STIP. The Washington State Department of Transportation compiles its plan from the regional transportation improvement plans submitted by the local jurisdictions. The Franklin County Transportation Improvement Plan from 2021 to 2026 covers the anticipated projects for the next 6 years, regardless of funding source, with the first 4 years of the plan being fiscally constrained. Per RCW 36.81.121, the Board of Franklin County Commissioners will hold a public hearing to consider the proposed transportation improvement plan and hear testimony in favor of or in opposition to its adoption. Again, we have, or I should say, the county engineer and his staff has prepared exhibits which have been provided in the agenda summary report, and we can answer any questions or provide support when called upon by the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, we will ask for commissioner comments before we open the public hearing, please.
Matt, Commissioner Peck, I'm looking at the STIP. I think I'm looking at the correct version here. The first 3 items on the list are the only ones that I see offhand that indicate any level of state funding. I think those of us who have been in various briefings recently realize that state funding for highways is going to be extremely short next year. And so my question is, are these 3 projects, 1, 2, and 3 on the list that show state funding, is that money already locked in, or is there jeopardy of losing that?
Yeah, those projects are definitely locked in, and there's no jeopardy of losing any of that funding.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep.
So Matt, continuing on with that, this is Commissioner Didier. On number 4, there is no state funding for this. It says safety, flashing LED lights, dynamic signals, and reflector posts. Now we just put reflector posts that was a grant up Glade Road and up 68, and sorry to say there's nothing left. They're all gone. Where are these reflector posts going to be positioned, and are they going to be on an all-weather road? Those are really the only ones that are surviving the movement of equipment on our Franklin County roads.
Actually, this specific one where we're referring to flashing LED signs, dynamic signs, and reflector posts, those are specifically with intersections. So when we talk about reflector posts there, we're talking about putting the reflectors on the actual posts that hold the stop signs and the stop ahead signs. You're starting to see that more and more, even with DOT and nationwide, where you're now you're trying to get that post to reflect as well as the stop sign. So this isn't referring to the actual, reflectors or the guideposts that we put down the roads. This is really kind of adding to some of the protection we have at some of our major intersections where minors come into majors connect to majors, and really trying to enhance what we've done in the past by putting flashing lights, let's say, on top of our stop signs. This is really trying to light those intersections up with that retro reflectivity to really stop these where people are running through stop signs on county roads. So I appreciate what you're saying, and we are definitely something we're looking into that when we talk about the guideposts themselves. But this is actually a different project that's dealing specifically with the intersections.
Okay. And I hope that even though it is grant money, they didn't last. I thought the potato diggers would be the ones that would take them out, but there really isn't anything left up Glade Road after the all-weather road. On the all-weather road, they are doing a lot better than on the narrow roads.
Yeah, where you have more width, definitely we're going to see that. And it's one of those things that as we put together the report, the state and especially FHWA, they're looking for corridors, and Glade North itself is definitely a corridor where we actually have accident reports that show a lot of runoff road type accidents, single vehicle accidents, people running off the road. And that's what it's trying to do. But yeah, certainly in the future, we're going to work a little bit more diligently with the state and FHWA to where we don't maybe have, like you referring to, the all-weather roads where we've actually gone in there and widened them to meet the traffic for today, and even in 20 years into the future where we actually get more width, those would make more sense. So, it's one of those things where we're trying to play by the rules that are put in front of us and trying to do the best for this county. But sometimes we don't like wasting money either. I mean, we want to use the taxpayers' money the best we can, but in the same token, we got to play by the rules that the feds put in front of us.
Yep. Okay. Now, another question is down the list there, number 20, Dent Road widening, and then down at 41, Dent Road, Road 68, Clark Road intersection improvement. Does that entail, and I would strongly suggest we move this up the list because we need avenues to get our produce to market, and right now everything's pushing towards Glade Road, which is a very heavily trafficked road by semis. If we could get that improvement, and I've already talked to the resident owner of that triangle piece of property, Mr. Shumway, and he has agreed to work with us on putting that curved corner for semis to get down to Dent Road, to get to Road 100 and onto the highway heading towards Yakima and Seattle. This would really improve the corridor of traffic, getting the goods out of the northern Franklin County farm units to market. It would really help out a bunch. And I think we really need to move that up the list and prioritize that.
Yeah, and it's one of those interesting things when it comes to priority, and we see things throughout the year depending on how funding becomes available and how we move after things. So when things are on the list, as you'll notice that we're really heavy in bridge replacement, repair, and doing a lot of overlays and trying to bring our current road system up. And so that's where we've kind of put the emphasis, the priority on trying to enhance our all-weather road system on Glade North, on all of these other segments of road, and they fall down. But that's not to say that any one of these even the 44th one on there, or I shouldn't say that because that's a study, but you go down to 42, 41 in those numbers, those could absolutely jump up anywhere. We don't really, when we are looking at these, we don't really look at things from a priority. We chase after whatever funding we can get for any project, and they can move up at any time. So from our standpoint, from a priority, we were really focusing on the state of our bridges and on the state of our all-weather road system, and really putting, Craig and his staff have done a good job of putting their emphasis there. And unfortunately, we have to, based on the template that we're given to call those priorities, but I'll just say that internally, we don't look at those as being really priorities. We're going after every bit of funding that we can and trying to find ways to get every one of these projects going. And the other thing is to remember is these are only, any one of these projects are only at most 6 years out. And our thing is just, we don't really see what we're seeing funding wise going on right now. And as Commissioner Peck said, that funding specifically from a state level is going to be pretty low. We're just kind of putting them in there based on how we're seeing the federal government and FHWA on it, what their emphasis is on funding, and trying to put them in there. But certainly we can move it up at this point. But I do want to just, hopefully take care of any concerns you have, that we go after whatever funding we can, and projects absolutely where they look like they can be on the 6 year can actually move up to a much sooner timeline than that.
Yes, safety is my issue here because big trucks and, we're seeing more and more accidents out there. And when you got a big truck fully loaded, there's no mercy on the car that's in front of them.
I agree. Yes.
Deadly. So I'm looking for a safe avenue of getting these products out and not plugging up Glade Road with all the truck traffic. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Any further comments from the commissioners?
Yeah, Matt, question for you.
Uh-huh.
Peck. I concur with the goals that Commissioner Didier laid out. I just am curious about one thing. What is the accident history with trucks? Am I missing a number of accidents there?
I can't really speak to that. I'm not aware of a high number of accidents. I've got some anecdotal information from people of having a lot of major close calls at that intersection for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
So
well, maybe I can get that from you later. It doesn't really change my thinking for today. I just try to keep sort of a mental note of where the high risk safety areas are in the county, and if that needs to be added to that list, then I can certainly do that.
Yeah.
I think what I heard you say is, given current fiscal constraints, we start with whatever money we can get our hands on. Then we looked at what projects are eligible for those funds and then prioritize among those. Is that the process you've been using?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
I mean, and and not to interrupt you or to add on. Yeah. The one thing we tried to show our 6 year transportation improvement program in a little bit different format this year, and that's why you see the funded or partially funded projects are on top, and then you see the next group of projects, which is 12 through 34. Those are unfunded roadway, railroad improvement projects. And like I said, that's where we're kind of showing where our emphasis is really focusing on the bridges and those roads that are part of our all-weather road system, what we call our farm to market roads. And then as you go down, you have the unfunded enhancement and safety projects, and then the unfunded miscellaneous projects. So we're really just sorting them there, and we understand that the priority numbers make it look like projects are way down there, but we're just trying to make it easier for people to understand. Really, I look at those priorities as being based on each of those groups that you see as opposed to the numbers themselves, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Very much so.
I get it.
All right. With that discussion, we will now open the public hearing. Keith, do we have anything on the line?
I have no callers on the line at this time, Commissioner.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Yes, please.
I did have a call from a citizen that calls about the 6-year transportation improvement program. Her question revolves specifically around striping her road, putting a center line stripe. And I just wanted to let the board know, I did inform her that striping is not a project that's part of the 6-year transportation improvement program. We do have a policy in place. We did look at her road. The county engineer, Craig, on the line, can speak more to it if you want, but we are going to be striping her road this year. It does meet all of the warrants to start putting a center line stripe on it. So I just wanted to let you know I did receive a call. She called specifically about the 6-year transportation improvement program, asking about that. But and basically I was able to answer her question from another, and she was satisfied. So,
All right, thank you.
Yep.
I also received that same call, Matt, so sorry to send it to you.
Oh no, that I appreciate it. That's what you're supposed to do.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank
So,
you.
Matt, what was the road name that she requested the striping on?
That was on Fur Road.
Yep, I know Fur Road, and we have a lot of truck traffic on that are avoiding the scales on 395, and they travel that road, and they're trucks that are going 60 mile an hour up that road.
Yes. And that was absolutely what was relayed. So.
Yep. Okay.
Still nothing, Keith?
Commissioner, I did get one call of Mr. Robert Anderson that is now on the line.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Anderson.
Yes, how you doing?
Good. You are on the commissioners' meeting, so invite you to make your comments, please.
So you're breaking up there a minute. What was that?
Go ahead with your comments, please.
Oh, I was calling in regards to we're represent Consult for Health, a medical platform that does the testing for COVID with a high complexity lab and 100%, 99% success rate on our testing.
Mr. Anderson, I apologize for interrupting you. We are in the middle of a public hearing regarding our public transportation plan. So I'm going to ask you to hold your comments for just a moment until we can till we get to the discussion about COVID-19. I apologize.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
No problem. You bet.
Nothing further, Keith?
No, sir.
All right. With that, gentlemen, I would entertain a motion for resolution.
Close.
Pardon?
You need to close the hearing first.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, we will close the public hearing for the adoption of the 6-year transportation plan. Now I will entertain a motion for the resolution 2020-136.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Peck, move for approval of resolution 2020-136 as just discussed and as presented.
I second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, opposed? Thank you. Thanks, Matt and Craig. With that, it is the opportunity at the time for public comment. So, is this gentleman still on the line, maybe?
Yes. Okay, Mr. Anderson, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
All right, please go ahead. I apologize for the interruption.
No worries. I was just ringing. I'm a business owner and resident of Benton County, and native to Tri-Cities, and I was reaching out because I'm a partner in Consult for Health, which is a medical platform that has extremely high success rate in testing both current and past presence of COVID, with a high complexity lab and a blood transport system or card system that operates much like an intravenous blood draw. I have my partners on the line, Rick Hewitt and Tripp Jones as well, to help elaborate on the technical aspect of our system. And we also include in our structure a environmental cleaning system that gets pumped through the ventilation system. So we test, we clean, we test again, and we do it with 99% accuracy. And we also have a management system a software management system that that's HIPAA compliant and encrypted and integrated with the virtual care to where we can go in, test, follow and manage that population so we know who actually has been tested, who hasn't, and we're not just going after the symptomatic population. Those that show no signs, we can hit them as well and find out who has it, who just has the flu, who has had it, and help these businesses get reopened.
Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate that. And I would just invite you to contact the County Administrator, Keith Johnson, and we can have a further discussion of your services. So thank you.
Mr. Johnson, Commissioner Peck, I was not able to understand anything the gentleman said. I don't know if he had his speaker on in the background, but tremendous amount of feedback. So in the future, if we could please ask callers to make sure they have other electronics turned off. And could you summarize for me his remarks, please?
Yes, certainly. Let me speak into the own microphone so you can hear me. Mr. Anderson has a consulting firm that specializes in COVID testing. He indicated that they have a high capacity lab with the ability to result in a 99% accuracy, and was offering his services to assist the county in whatever needs we may have for additional testing capacity.
Okay, we can certainly discuss more in detail later. I would just note that it really is a Benton Franklin Health District call probably, and if you would make sure that information gets relayed to the executive director over at Benton Franklin Health District and perhaps have him follow up. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner, it looks like we do have additional callers on the line.
Okay.
Hi, is this Ms. Richardson? Hello? I'm not hearing anybody there. First caller may not have stayed on the line, so we'll await the second one. Good morning. Is this Lawanda?
No, this is
Oh,
Berlene.
this is Berlene. Thank you. Okay. You are in the commissioners meeting, so please go ahead with your comments.
I had heard that there was a proposed 6-year plan for road improvements and maintenance or updating on some of these bridges out here going over the irrigation canals. And I understand that Cherry Drive has been yet again kind of just skipped over with no plans to improve this road. And it concerns me because we've been made, promise after promise that we're, next year. And I've lived out here on this road for well over 20 years, in fact, almost all my life. And this road is terrible. You guys are doing a good job of keeping it graded to the, as much as you can, but with the irrigation water that gets sprayed across it on a regular basis, sometimes almost minutes after they're done doing their job, it just goes right back to what it is, and that's terrible. There's very little gravel. Sometimes it gets watered, or if we have a lot of rain in the winter or whenever, it just turns into a mud pit. And I've had times where if I wouldn't have a four-wheel drive vehicle, I wouldn't get down the road. And I understand it's getting skipped over again. The one time I was told when I called in and asked about it, you know, being maybe possibly paved, I was told that it's not traveled enough. So I saw a counter out there, and, you know, a counter is great and to get data, but it doesn't do justice to the travel of the road when you put it out in October and all the harvesting is done. We have a orchard on past our place towards the east, and when they're thinning or picking or pruning, it's just a nonstop flow of traffic. Semis come down here with truckloads of apples. We even get the milk trucks coming from the dairy on down on Dogwood, and that was paved so they could go out to Glade, but it, you know, sometimes they come across to go out Taylor Flats. And it's just getting really frustrating. You know, we've been promised this improvement years to come, and it just seems to always get postponed or the money's used in another direction. I understand that bridges need to be kept in, you know, safe working order, but there's roads around us that are far less traveled with many, you know, a lot less residents on it that are paved. They're, you know, either dead end or, you know, I don't know. It just gets really frustrating. You know, you start feeling, you know, you're a taxpayer and you're paying for these roads, and then you live on one that just beats the tar out of your car as you're going down it, and you feel like you need a front end alignment every time you get home from work. So it's getting quite frustrating, and I don't know if there can be something done to change that plan, to take the residents of Cherry Drive into, you know, consideration. I think we've been pretty patient. I was told to call the sheriff's department when the roads are getting watered, and I did that for several years on end, and nothing changes. So it's just getting to the point where it's just, you know, you want to pull your hair out, beat your head against the wall, because, you know, we're paying taxes too. Dayton got paved through from Cedar to Dogwood because it's a bypass route from Glade. Not quite sure what they're bypassing in that little stretch, because there's about 3 or 4 residents on that loop. So I don't know. I don't know what the problem is. I don't know if one of our residents that live on this road has ticked somebody off and we've got a black mark over our street, but it's frustrating. And I would like it to be considered as one of your upcoming improvement projects.
Thank you very much. Could you clarify which road that is? You didn't come through real clear on the
Cherry Drive.
Cherry?
It's North Cherry Drive,
Okay.
off of Taylor Flats.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Anything further, Keith?
Yes, we have, looks like 2 other callers awaiting.
Remind them it is a 3-minute comment period.
Good morning. Is this Luanda?
Yes, it is.
Hi, Luanda. You are in the commissioner's room, and we would encourage you to share your comments up to 3 minutes.
Okay, I will try. I wasn't sure if our county commissioners were aware, but I received a personal email from our county administrator yesterday. And keep in mind, the only capacity that I know our county administrator is through the county commissioners. I've never met him outside of the commissioner meetings. But I can tell you, I was shocked, appalled, and offended by it. I am a member of the community, and I have a right and an obligation to ask tough questions. And I was spoken down to, patronized, and I felt it was quite sexist. But he made a statement to me that I am encouraging the Board of Health members to terminate the health officer, which is not true. I have asked and put information in to the health department asking for data. I was never even given a response as we will get that to you as soon as possible. Nothing. And so then I have been calling on an audit because there is data that the public is not receiving. People are scared. People are confused. People will not be compliant because the data is all over the place and we have no trust in it. And for that reason, we have an obligation to ask for that full data. And that is what I expect as a member of the citizenry of Franklin County. He implied that I was doing it for political gain. And so I would like to know and ask right now, what political gain am I getting? What financial gain am I getting? What personal gain am I getting as a member of this citizenry of Franklin County? I have received no gain from anyone for anything. All that I fight for is for the truth and for the love of my county. And it is beyond offensive for him to tell me that I am unchristian and borderline liable. I am just shocked. And I would like to know now if my county commissioners were aware of this, because he says in his first statement that he was made aware of this. So I would like to know who made him aware of this, because his statement is untrue and offensive to me.
Thank you for your comments.
It wasn't just a comment, there were questions. Were my county commissioners aware?
This is a comment period.
Okay, well, I can tell you that I will always, under the Freedom of Information Act, I have a right and an obligation to know the truth. When these policies are being decided on insufficient data that is affecting the livelihoods of many citizens in this county, that's small businesses in downtown Pasco, as well as small businesses throughout the city. And we, the people, want answers, expect answers, and demand answers. Our county administrator does gain politically. He does gain financially, and he does gain personally, as well do all the commissioners. I have no gain other than the love of my county. Thank you.
We still have some additional callers on the line.
Okay.
Good morning. Is this Mr. Ellington?
Yeah, this is.
You are in the commissioners meeting, so please state your comments and please keep it to 3 minutes if you can. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, I'm Derek Ellington, the president of the Tri-City Youth Hockey Association. We've submitted a proposal to change the lease at the track to basically where we take full responsibility with the ice making there. I don't know if you guys are aware, there's 3 compressors out on that unit, and we have some people in-house that do refrigeration for a living and confident of getting it going in the right direction. So we've submitted a new lease agreement where we take care of all the ice making from the chiller to the dehumidifier and just a couple altercations of the lease. And I wanted to see, just because we're kind of running up against the clock here of getting it repaired and and done in a timely fashion of where we're at with it.
Commissioner Cook, I may just interject. We have received that proposal from Takaha regarding the potential takeover of the ice making equipment at the Expo Hall at the Happel Center, and are reviewing that, getting it ready to bring before the board for a formal proposal.
Well, thank you for the update. Thanks for the concern.
Thank you, Derek.
I appreciate it, guys.
Looks like we have one more caller waiting, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Ms. Fielding?
Yes.
Good morning. You are in the commissioner's room. We invite you to make your comments and ask that you try to keep them within 3 minutes, please.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. As a citizen of our counties, I've kind of been interested in COVID and our related policies. I think we have chosen the wrong approach. If you follow the local statistics, in Benton County, 99% of our deaths have occurred to those over 60 plus. The coronavirus is a serious risk to about 7% of the population, 75 and older, and minimal risk to the other 93%. As the CDC-based chart below shows, almost 30,000 of those over 85 have died, which is 190 per 100,000. So instead of we shut down our national economy when the average risk of fatality for our working population, ages 18 to 64, is about 50 times lower than the highest risk population. I believe in the state of Washington, we've only had less than 100 people die under the age of 60. And I believe in the age groups 0 to 24, we've had 0 deaths. So we've closed our schools when the risk has been very minimal to our children, and yet we've increased their risks in other areas. We've seen suicides occur and child abuse occur. So on May 25th, according to CDC, Washington had about 1,001 deaths, of which 90% are 60 to 85. This is just trying to make people aware of the real numbers. And this is to advocate and educate, to take a more surgical approach to protecting our elderly and immune compromised. And while getting our economy open, getting our kids back in school and making sure they actually stay in school, and choosing policies that actually protect liberties. There's a group of us that have started an organization called citizenswantactiontoday.com. You can go to read more information about it as we try to advocate to open up and protect everybody. That's all I have.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, no other callers at this time, Commissioner.
All right. With that, you're still available to call in, but we will move on to office business. Approval of payroll.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we don't have any payroll items this morning. We do have fund expenditures. Move for approval of fund expenditures as presented in the total amount of $815,247.69. Note that this has been reviewed by the county administrator and 2 members of the auditor's office.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, that's the only fiscal item that we have this morning. If you're ready, I can move to consent.
Please.
Okay, I see 6 items on the consent agenda this morning. Move for approval of the consent agenda as presented. Happy to entertain questions, but I'm not requesting any separate items.
Okay.
I second with no questions.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, thank you. We will move us on to Keith, please, office business.
Yes, thank you. The first item I want to just briefly maybe make a follow-up, since it became a item in our public comment, is the proffering of a proposal by the Tri-City Youth Hockey Association to amend their lease so that they would be responsible for replacing our ice making equipment out at the Hapo Center. We've had numerous discussions with this board over the past couple of years about the aging system and its lack of ability to be maintained adequately, difficulty in finding parts, the statements from our HVAC consultants that those particular chillers are so dated that it would require a complete replacement for us to be able to have any degree of assurance that we could continue to provide ice for the hockey arena. So with that kind of as a background, Tom French and I have met with representatives from the Hockey Association. When they signed the current lease, they were hoping or anticipating the possibility of being able to develop or build their own facility or arena for a number of reasons, not the least of which, of course, is the current COVID environment. They don't think that that is a very likely scenario, that they would be able to buy or build a separate facility for themselves. We've had general discussions amongst the board and just more anecdotal conversations about the possibility of perhaps selling that building either to them. That creates kind of its own set of issues to be concerned about. I guess that's still a possibility. It's somewhat on the table, but it's not a suggestion that we're seriously considering at the moment. But Takaha has come to me and Mr. French to offer the replacement of our ice making equipment, with them essentially taking responsibility and ownership of that piece of equipment, so that they can be assured that they've got ice for the next couple of years as they look forward with their particular plan and program. I don't have a formal contract for you to consider this morning, so there's not a formal decision point, but would just want you to be aware that discussion has taken place. We're getting close to be able to bringing a contract before the board for you to review and approve, but would like some guidance from the board if you think that proposal has merit, and answer any preliminary questions that you would have at this point before bringing a formal contract before you. So with that as a background, I'm happy to answer questions or go into any more detailed discussions that you would like to hear at this point.
Keith, I have a few questions. If they were going to take the responsibility of repairing the chillers and the compressors, is there any difference in payment from them to us as far as the rental rate?
I believe our anticipated rental rate for next year was supposed to go from 80,000 to 90,000, but they would ask that we maintain that at 80,000. So there would be some financial impact to our lease agreement with them.
Okay.
The way that their board is elected and under their bylaws and rules, they were hesitant to make a long-term commitment. Previously, under the other boards that they have had, they've been willing to make long-term commitments, but that requires subsequent boards who are elected by their members to honor contracts and commitments made by, and they would like to get out of that. So it would probably just be a 2-year contract to run concurrently with their current board members' election terms. And so
Would they want to hold the rental rate at 80,000 for both years?
Yes.
And they would take full responsibility of all, so that would be off of our platter.
Yeah, I think you'll recall that we already transferred the responsibility for most of the ice maintenance, the Zamboni driving and the maintenance of that kind of thing to them. But this would actually transfer responsibility for producing the ice, having the ice chillers and the equipment to do so, and give them more responsibility, as it were.
I think we need to get this on the agenda next week, because I'm hearing a sense of urgency in his voice, because they need to have this locked down.
They're needing to make a decision.
Yes, so I think we need to give them a thumbs up or thumbs down on it, and I think we need to have it on the agenda next week.
Commissioner Cook, this is Commissioner Peck. Mr.
Yes.
Johnson, I was not aware, I don't know if anyone else was, that this was going to be a topic of discussion, excuse me, this morning. And I don't think that we're going to be in a position to complete necessary reviews and do an up or down vote as early as next week. There are half a dozen complexities that I can think of off the top of my head that could weigh heavily on this issue. And given the fiscal nature of it, it may even be one that under the law would be appropriate or maybe even necessitate an executive session, which is a challenge in these times. It may be that you've been having these conversations with Mr. French and you've got answers to all the questions I've got, and that we could have those conversations this week, and that might change my view. But as I sit here now, not knowing that this was going to come forward and not knowing the details of your discussions previously, I think it's premature to think that we can do this next week.
I also have to believe that we need to see and have more time to sort this out. I know it's been going on for a while, but I have not been aware of any discussions either. So you brought up, Mr. Johnson, you brought up a number of items, you know, as far as selling it or letting them take it over, or, you know, there's things to enter into this discussion.
Yeah, I will just respond by saying time is somewhat of the essence in that they would like a decision, but it's not a situation where this has to be decided by next week. We do have time to explore options and certainly answer questions that the board members may have regarding the future of that ice arena. But I recognize that sooner is better, but it doesn't necessarily have to be next Tuesday.
So, Mr. Johnson, Commissioner Peck again, I want to be clear that I'm not inherently opposed to the idea. I'm just simply saying I don't have enough information to have a position, and unless there's a lot of information provided between now and next week, I don't see being in a position to make a decision. There's a number of issues, including whether the equipment involved is real property or whether it's personal property, whether it can be transferred separate from real property, whether it has to be sold as part of the building, and that's just scratching the surface. I'd be happy to move it along as quickly as we can and get the decision quickly, and I don't think it has to be a long, protracted thing, but for it to come up kind of out of the blue this morning and expect that we're going to have the kind of board discussion we need and a decision next week. And in theory, it could be done, but it'd be a real push. And I'll perhaps talk with you offline about some of the other issues with respect to whether or not an executive session might be appropriate.
I think that's perfectly appropriate. I did not necessarily anticipated a broad discussion of the matter today, but since it came up in public comment, I wanted the board to kind of be aware of where we are in that discussion, and we'll have those conversations individually, do everything if we have answers to your questions now, we'll provide them. If it requires some staff research or continued follow-up, we'll do that. And if an executive session is necessary, we'll schedule that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Keith. I think that would be one thing that Commissioner Peck brought up. That could be some legwork ahead of time. Is it real or personal, or can it be the property building separated from the equipment? So those are good questions in the meantime.
Very good. The other item, if it's okay, if I move on.
Please.
One thing that we have, again, briefly discussed in the past, but have never moved forward with, but the COVID response has, an action has generated much more discussion about the need for the county to have a much more available presence to communicate information to the public. We currently just operate a website, which requires people to search us out and come find us on the website. We do not have a social media presence, Facebook or Twitter accounts. Most other counties in the state of Washington do have some level of social media presence and have found it to be effective in getting information out to the people quickly. It provides kind of a single source of information to do so. I will acknowledge that I have been reluctant to pursue a social media operation just because of some of the technical requirements, the Public Records Act issues, the Americans with Disabilities Act issues, and some of the things that we have not had the staff time to dedicate to doing this. So over the past few days, I have met and spoken with an individual who recently started a company that specifically does this kind of work for county governments. A gentleman from the Tri-Cities area, of impressive background in public relations for the military. His name is Mike Paoli. We've spoken on the phone a couple of times. He sent me some information about his technical experience and background, and a general proposal of ideas of what he could do to help Franklin County establish a Facebook page and other social media accounts to be able to communicate our information out more quickly and keep the public more informed. And in the effort of transparency and the need for people to receive factual information, I'm suggesting that we consider pursuing a contractual relationship that would allow him to build those social media sites for us and help us monitor and maintain those consistent with the laws of the state of Washington, but also help us avoid some of the challenges that may come from going down this road. The Franklin County Sheriff's Office has their own Facebook page. They have been very successful in keeping the community informed of operations out of the Sheriff's Office. City of Pasco certainly is active in the social media arena. And so I think it's time that the county consider moving forward with this kind of a presence on the internet. So again, there's no contract before you this morning to make a decision on, but would like your thoughts about whether you think more transparent communication to the public is essential right now, and if we are in at least tacit agreement this morning, I would like to bring back before the board a contract, probably at next week's meeting, but begin to have those conversations with Mr. Paoli about the possibility of having his expertise put to use for the benefit of the county.
So Keith, this is Commissioner Peck. Several questions come to mind right away. Maybe you can knock off a few for me. This is contract, not an employee, it sounds like.
Yes.
Is that correct?
That's
Okay.
correct.
How would we pay for it?
Well, initially, we could use CARES funding to pay for it for this year, because the primary purpose of our needing to do this is to establish a more informed communication regarding COVID-19. I would have hoped, as all of us have hoped, that by now we would be well into phase 2 or on our way to phase 3 and so forth. But it's no surprise that we are still stuck in phase 1. And as a result, that has generated more questions than answers, and felt like there's a need to be able to communicate quickly to the members of the public about our status of application with the Department of Health, progress that we either have made or have not made, so that people are aware. So our initial purpose of establishing this would be under our need to keep the public informed of our COVID-19 reaction and process. Long-term, we would have to find money in the budget to be able to do this. I expect that the ongoing cost will not be significant. It's probably something we'll be able to figure out a way to pay for within our next year's budget, if necessary. But ultimately, it's something I think we should do. Perhaps the best way to compare it is, you're all aware of the contract that we have with Kevin Wesley for our bargaining unit negotiations that we've had for a few years now. It's in today's world, having a social media presence is not only basically an essential requirement of business communication, but it requires a certain degree of skill and specialty to be able to negotiate or to navigate through some of the pitfalls that can occur as a result of doing it wrong, as it were. So,
Keith, just one other quick observation. Having worked in this field for many, many years, I know probably every corporate communications person in the Tri-Cities. I know Mr. Paoli. I don't have any connection or business connection with him or anything other than an acquaintance like most of the other communicators in town. But he must have left his local employment, because until recently he was the public relations director for Energy Northwest, where I used to be. So this is separate and aside from Energy Northwest. It's private.
Yes, he's completely set up his own private company. I have spoken to a few people in the area that have worked with him. He comes very highly recommended.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Keith, I got some questions here. What currently where's he work at right now?
My understanding is this is his full-time job now, is this company that he set up, and he gets clients like counties and cities and business entities to do this work for them.
Now, is he not a member of the Tri-City Editorial Board?
That I don't know if he is. He could be. I don't know.
I think he used to be. They rotate out those guest positions. I remember that he was a few years ago. Commissioner Didier is correct. And I'm not 100% certain he's not now, but those rotate, I think, annually.
Commissioner Peck sure knows a lot about Mr. Paoli without having any connection with him. I'm sort of getting that from the conversation here, but I would hate to see us just lock up with one person at this time. I think we need to open, if we're going to do this, we open this up and entertain other people and see who is the best to serve Franklin County, and not just pick one blindly and think that we're going to get the best. This needs to be open to the public. This is
So,
going to be
Mr. Johnson,
critical to our
I don't
county.
have any concern. I think Commissioner Didier makes a good point. The veiled assertion is inappropriate. I'll just point out, I know Mr. Paoli because he succeeded me at Energy Northwest, and because, like Mr. Didier, I've sat before the editorial board. So that's the association.
I have no objection to contacting others and having them submit
Yeah.
a.
I would like to see others. I would like to see this open to the public for everybody to put in, and we can pick and choose the best one.
Okay. Commissioner Cook, do you have any questions or?
No, I think you're on the right track. We do need to do something. I don't know that we have anybody in-house that is capable of doing that or honestly has the time to do it. But I can't disagree with the other two gentlemen as far as asking for open proposals.
Yes.
Yeah, I would suggest only in response to that there are probably people in the courthouse that adequately know how to use social media. I am not that person. I'll readily admit that. But the basic requirements of just setting up a Facebook page or a Twitter account, yeah, just about anybody can do that. But it's more in the assurance that we've got legal compliance, and then managing our process for responding to comments and input from the public, making sure that we have adequately stored and can manage for public records request issues down the road. So there's a technical background side to this that's beyond simple use of a social media account, and that's the kind of expertise that I think we need to look at that.
All right. Any further comments, Keith?
That's all I have. I would just, update for members of the public that are observing the meeting. We have not received word from the Department of Health regarding our ability to move into an additional phase. Yesterday, there was a press conference in which Commissioner Cook, Commissioner Delvin from Benton County, and Dr. Person from the Benton Franklin Health District participated in, encouraging members of the public to socially distance and follow safety protocols, wearing face coverings when they're in public, and those kinds of things. That those are, at least at this juncture, their best advice and recommendations to, as has been described, flatten the curve or reduce the number of transmissions of COVID-19 infections that are taking place in our community at a much higher rate than we would have anticipated or hoped. And we are getting precipitously close to overburdening our hospital system. The available COVID-19 bed space is becoming more and more limited. So they're strongly encouraging people to do what they can to help their neighbors avoid contagion. So we are waiting for additional guidance and response from the Department of Health. That information in some sense comes in pretty much daily, but our application to move to an advanced phase within the Stay Healthy phased program that the governor's outlined is essentially awaiting approval or additional instruction from the Department of Health.
So Keith, I have one other question I'd like to ask. We got a phone call here earlier about an email received by Luanda Hatch. I would like a full explanation to the public on what this email was, and were you representing the commissioners with this email?
I certainly be glad to respond to that. No, I did not. I made it clear in the statement that I was writing as a private citizen,
Okay.
not as a county administrator. I'd be happy to provide commissioners or the public, for that matter, a copy if it's necessary. But
I would like to see a copy of it, if you wouldn't mind sending it to me.
As I said in the email, it was intended to be a private citizen.
Okay.
Going a little bit back to the social media, the county does not have an official social media account. I don't spend a lot of time on social media, but I was alerted that on Ms. Hatch's Facebook page was a call essentially for the county commissioners who make up the Board of Health to either terminate or demote or somehow be punitive toward Dr. Person at the Benton Franklin Health District. And I gave what I think was probably a strongly worded opinion that I felt that was uncalled for, that it was an attack on a staff member who, despite maybe some of us disagree with from time to time, somebody who's a dedicated professional who's trying to do what is in her professional opinion the best interest of the county, and that it was uncalled for to be so disparaging in, even though Facebook is a private system, it's essentially a public one in that anybody who chooses to look can see that information, and did not feel like Ms. Hatch had the full story or was representing the full story. It's clear to me, and I think most people that know Luanda Hatch, she's very active politically. I believe she's an officer in one of the local parties, and that's all well and good. I would encourage her to continue to be active, but to use that position to disparage a public employee who I believe, as I said, I may disagree with on a number of issues. I do believe she is not acting out of bad faith. I don't believe she is doing anything that should put her professional position at jeopardy, and disparaging comments I felt like were unbecoming of a fellow citizen of Franklin County, and I stated that in my opinion to her. So
Keith,
yes.
Quick question. This was, and this is the first that I have heard of this. You and I haven't discussed it. This was a private email from your private email account on your own time as a private citizen?
Correct.
Okay, then I'm not interested in discussing it because I don't think it's county business. But if you want to, that's your call. Thank you.
Commissioner Didier, have I
Yes.
addressed your
Yep.
concerns? Thank you.
If you don't mind, I'd still like to see it, but
Certainly.
you never once in there implied that you were the administrator?
No.
Okay. All right.
Anything further, Keith?
That's all I believe I have. It looks like we do have some callers on the line awaiting for public comment.
All right, thank you. Take them as they come.
Good morning. Is this Mr. Morrell?
Yes, it is.
Good morning.
One second here. Good morning. How are we doing today?
Very good, thank you. You are in the commissioner's room. Ask you to keep your comments to 3 minutes, but please go ahead.
Yeah, I just have a really quick question for you. Hopefully, I just wanted to follow up and see if you guys had gotten any information on the travel vouchers and what the internal audit showed up on that.
I can respond to that if you'd like, Commissioner. I can,
Comment period.
this is a comment period. We typically don't engage in debate or discussion, but I would be happy to discuss that with you and share the results of what we've determined.
Okay. You were breaking up there. I'm sorry. What you'll be happy to do what? I'm sorry.
If you would contact my office, I'd be happy to discuss that with you.
Okay. So I can't get an answer as to if we found anything right or wrong or any issues with that today?
We're only taking public comment at this point, not, but like I said, it would probably be better for you and I to discuss this, and then if you would like to bring it back to the commission, you could do so.
Okay. All right. Well, then I will, I'll have to call in and see if I can figure something else out then.
Okay, thank you.
Or stop in. Yeah, bye.
Good morning. Is this Matt? Hello? I'm not hearing anybody. Are you there, caller? Going once, going twice. You may be on mute. We're not hearing you.
Hello?
Hello, there you are. Can we hear you? Is this Matt?
This is he.
Matt, you are on. Please make your comments. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Oh, this is Pete? I'm sorry, I'm looking at you. All right, listen, I'm calling in. It's Matt Beaton. I'm calling in basically to comment on the procurement of the social media. So I do believe we need to open that up. I do want to comment on the fact that I know Mike Paoli. In fact, he just wrote a fantastic article for the Tri-City Herald regarding his PR skills that he learned while in the Air Force, which he's fantastic at them. But he did a great critique of some of the mistakes that the governor had made during one of his news conferences. And I do know that he's been very active, in the editorial board in the past. I think he's hugely talented and could potentially be, an asset. But I would say this, and I'm going to say this because after 9.5 years and now see what's going on, how many people in the community are looking what's going on in our government. And there's a disconnect between what we see and what we hear. Mike Paoli was in the Air Force and was a great fan of Mr. Peck's. Now, however Mr. Peck wants to characterize their relationship, I have no comment. But I do know, I'm not sure if a conflict of interest, it rises to this level or not. But I would say that Mr. Paoli, in my discussions with him personally, and when I saw him at Mr. Peck's house back when I was still able to go over there and he had gatherings, the bottom line is there was some kind of a relationship there from the Air Force and training in PR, and I'm certain Mr. Paoli would be more than happy to talk about that. I think I think the best thing we can do is that if we're going to make this big leap to open it up, there are a lot of digital companies in the Tri-Cities that should have a shot at this. And I do believe that the most important thing to know is there is a potential conflict of interest by not fully disclosing the relationship that I was aware of that possibly Mr. Peck has forgotten about. So thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman.
Comment period. It's comment period. There's no discussion.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
This is Commissioner Peck. I'm not responding to Mr. Beaton. I am providing information for the board. And if you'd like, I'll wait till we're out of this comment period.
Yep.
But the veiled allegations in there aren't going to go unaddressed. I'll wait.
Do you have any further on the line, Keith?
No, sir.
Okay. We will close the public comment period then and open anything else for the good of the board, commissioners?
So, Mr. Chairman, I'll pick up where I just left off. As I said, as the guy who worked in communications for many years in this town, I know virtually all the professional communicators, including Mr. Paoli. And yes, several of them have been to my place for social events over the years, including yourself and Mr. Beaton and other county officials, as well as the Blaisdells and Mr. Paoli, and I could list you several other communicators.
Please do.
The fact that I know someone doesn't rise to a conflict of interest, doesn't even come close. I want to be clear what I said earlier. I have no business affiliation or association with Mr. Paoli. He's not someone I socialize with today. He's not someone that I consult with. And to disadvantage someone, as Mr. Beaton apparently is attempting to do, merely because I have known them, is really inappropriate. Mr. Paoli's background and credentials are, in my view, someone who's got 30 plus years in this field, probably as good as anybody in the Tri-Cities. He ran the press desk in the Pentagon for the entire Air Force. So yes, I have been a fan of his skill set, and that was part of the reason that when he applied at Energy Northwest years ago, I encouraged them to hire him. But I have no business association or connection. I don't benefit from this in any way, and I'm perfectly happy for us to go out and have a competitive process. But to suggest otherwise, especially when you're a candidate running against me and to use this platform for political advancement or disparagement, it's just really petty. So that's the end of my thoughts. Thanks.
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple comments. First, Keith, we had a caller call about the travel voucher. He was asking for an answer. Now I'm asking for the answer. Where are we at on that?
We've completed the review of travel vouchers going back as far as we had records. We sent a statement to Commissioner Peck, which he reimbursed the county for what we think were the correct amounts, going back on those. And
so there was a reimbursement given back to the county?
yes.
In the amount of what?
I don't have the exact figure in front of me, but it was around, I want to say around $1,700 going back to 2013.
So let me understand this right. When we had that meeting that day and I sat here in front of the SAO and I asked them, what threshold does this, and they said there is no threshold. They claim they never found anything. Why is Commissioner Peck paying back money?
So Keith, I'm going to respond.
Okay.
I identified the issue several months ago, and I requested the review of past travel vouchers, and I submitted reimbursement to correct an administrative error. No one else brought this up. I'm the one. However, it does appear that others in the auditor's office may have attempted to use this as some sort of a campaign ploy. And in fact, the calls from one of the callers today was a repeat call. If we want to get into associations, is a good friend of Mr. Beaton and I believe yourself. So let's just be clear. Our own travel policy approved by Mr. Beaton's office failed to include language requiring the 50-mile offset. I identified the problem. I received coordination with the legal office to make sure that the interpretations I had were correct. And then I proceeded to have the board correct the travel policy. And then I audited my own vouchers and reimbursed the county. That's the way the process works. If you're suggesting that there's anything else more than that, you're mistaken, and I'll leave it there.
Well, I think I'm gonna have to ask for a full review of this because something doesn't seem right here. I'm the one that asked for the travel policy. I'm the one that asked for the travel policy, and it was changed when I came into office and the 50 miles was removed. And I asked in the meeting why the 50 miles was removed. And then it was re-implemented in this last travel policy. There seems to be a play with policies here, and I want to get to the bottom of it. Keith, another question or a comment. The National Guard is going to Coyote Ridge. Are you aware of that on Wednesday?
I've only heard that anecdotally.
Okay, so
Probably true.
I got a call from the
because
superintendent, Jeff Ukatek, and he told me that they gave him a term that he's never heard of before. It's called serial testing. Have you ever heard of that before?
I'm not familiar with that term.
He wasn't either. What it is they've had 100+ prisoners test positive for COVID.
Mhm.
And I asked, how can this be? There is no better isolation than a prison. Well, it was explained to me that they have dry cells. Do you know what a dry cell is?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there's no bathroom facilities.
Right.
So they're going and sharing bathroom facilities. These prisoners realize if they get COVID, they're going to get released. So they're purposely sharing it between each other so they can get out of prison. They've transferred 40 of the prisoners to Spokane and 40 of them to Monroe. And I'm thinking, why would you do that? It was explained to me. They have a medical facility at those facilities. We don't up here. It's limited. So they transferred them. 20 are still here. 30 plus 4 guards. 4 of the guards are training in Walla Walla. Now, again, you got to realize all these numbers are counting against our Franklin County. We're talking about 143 people right here, 100 plus. It could even be more than that. Now the National Guard's going to show up Wednesday, and they're going to perform this serial testing. What is serial testing? Every 5 days, they're testing those prisoners. When you test and you test and you test, you're going to find more positives, especially when I keep emphasizing that our own Board of Health, it's only a 63% accuracy on their test. You get a lot of false positives. Maybe not a lot, but you get false positives. I got a question. Are we purposely being suppressed by the governor with these actions? That's my question.
And I do not have a adequate answer for you. I do not represent the governor's office. I receive some communications through his staff people that are responsible for the Tri-Cities area. I think it's fair to say that the communication level from the governor's office has been less than what we would have hoped for. But again, I cannot speak for the governor or his political motivations one way or another.
And the last thing I want to talk about is this email that I got from our governor. And this is very disturbing because it was sent to our courthouse. And I think in an election time, everybody knows you can't use any government building for soliciting donations. Well, here I got this, that the governor wants to, now that we're safely reopening Washington economy, it's time to look ahead to November. I hope you'll join us on behalf of the Franklin County Commission for our first virtual event of 2020, a fundraising event. Suggested contributions: champion 4,000, advocate 2,000, friend 1,000, supporter 500, and guest 250. I think this needs to be put forth too to the right people, that he can't be soliciting funds from our courthouse. This is not right. We can't do it when we're running for office. How can he? These are concerns that I got as a commissioner.
I think that's a fair concern. I'll be happy to discuss that with the county's legal counsel to determine whether that has violated state campaign laws and whether there's action that the board needs to take.
Thank you.
I've got a comment, as part of your comments, Commissioner Didier, that the numbers up at Coyote Ridge, I brought that up a week or 10 days ago, why they're using those numbers against Franklin County numbers that we don't have any control over. I just heard yesterday they are pulling those numbers off of Franklin County's numbers.
Good. Thank you, Chairman. That's exactly what should happen. We should not have those tied up. That's a state facility. We don't have any jurisdiction over it. That's state's numbers. Thank you very much. And yes, you did pose that question, and it was an excellent question. Thank you.
Further comments? There's nothing else for the good of the board, everybody. Thank you. We are, I should check once more, Keith. Anybody on?
No other callers at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, well, with that said, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.